Do you know about Hishashi Ouchi, the Japanese man infamous for receiving the highest radiation exposure? In this video, we will also introduce 3 other individuals who endured radiation levels far beyond what one could ever imagine. Science is not something to be taken lightly, and under no circumstances should anyone attempt anything reckless near a nuclear reactor. To say worse than death is not an exaggeration. Science is fascinating, but it is only fun when it remains theoretical. In reality, playing with radiation is a reckless gamble with life itself. Radiation poisoning is rare, but when it occurs, it inevitably leads to fatal consequences. Let's first explore how radiation exposure is measured. Sievert, SV, is the unit used to quantify ionizing radiation absorption and its biological effects. It is named after Maximilian Rolf Sievert, a Swedish medical physicist who studied the impact of radiation on biological systems. 1 sievert equals sign 1000 MSV, 1 MSV equals sign 1000 USV. The average natural radiation exposure for a human is 0.001 to 0.002 sieverts per year, or 1 to 2 MSV annually. Now, consider the following radiation levels calculated by scientists regarding safe exposure limits. 1 to 3 sieverts. Mild to severe nausea, loss of appetite, bone marrow infections, and possible damage to the spleen. Recovery is possible, but not guaranteed. 3 to 6 sieverts, severe nausea, loss of appetite, internal bleeding, infections, diarrhea, peeling skin, infertility. Death is likely without immediate treatment. 6 to 10 sieverts, all the above symptoms plus damage to the central nervous system. Death is certain. Above 10 sieverts, instant death. Yet, history has recorded multiple cases where individuals suffered radiation doses far exceeding 10 sieverts, leaving their lives in unimaginable agony and darkness. Hishashi Ouchi. Many fear death, but for Hishashi Ouchi, death might have been a relief. Ouchi began working in the nuclear energy industry at a pivotal time for Japan. In 1999, Japan's nuclear fuel conversion company sought to streamline its uranium processing procedures to increase efficiency. Thus, on the morning of September 30th, Hishashi Ouchi, along with his colleague Masato Shinohara and supervisor Yutaka Yokokawa, attempted to shorten the uranium refinement process. However, none of them anticipated the catastrophic consequences of their actions. Instead of using an automatic pump to mix 2.4 kilograms of enriched uranium with nitric acid in a tank, they manually poured 16 kilograms of uranium, an act that defied every nuclear safety protocol. By 10:35 a.m., the uranium had reached critical mass. The room erupted in a blinding blue flash, indicating a nuclear chain reaction had been triggered. The entire facility was evacuated immediately. Meanwhile, Ouchi and his colleagues were rushed to the National Institute of Radiological Sciences in Chiba. All 3 men were exposed directly to high radiation levels, standing dangerously close to the nuclear fuel. However, each suffered different degrees of exposure. Supervisor Yutaka Yokokawa, 3 sieverts, the only survivor. Masato Shinohara, 10 sieverts, severe radiation poisoning. Hishashi Ouchi, who stood directly above the tank, received the worst exposure, 17 sieverts. Upon arriving at Tokyo University Hospital, doctors were shocked to discover that the 35-year-old technician's body had completely lost its white blood cells, leaving him with 0 immune system defense. His body bled uncontrollably as radiation had completely burned away the protective outer layers of his skin. Racked with excruciating pain, Ouchi cried and begged to die, yet his family and doctors refused to let him go. They continued performing experimental treatments, desperately trying to save his life. At one point, his heart stopped 3 times within an hour, but doctors revived him each time, honoring the family's wishes. Yet, Ouchi's life had effectively ended long before. Only after 83 agonizing days in the hospital, on December 21st, 1999, did his body finally give up, succumbing to multi-organ failure. He was at last freed from his unspeakable suffering. Louis Slotin, You may have heard of this scientist and the infamous Demon Core. Louis Slotin, a physicist and chemist, was involved in the Manhattan Project, a top-secret initiative to develop nuclear weaponry during World War II. When Japan surrendered, the plutonium core, nicknamed the Demon Core, was no longer needed for warfare and was repurposed for scientific experiments. Perhaps frustrated by its unused potential, the Demon Core exacted a deadly price from those who dared to experiment with it. On May 21, 1946, Slotin and 7 other scientists at Los Alamos Laboratory conducted a test involving the plutonium core, which was encased in a dome-shaped protective shell known as a tamper. This tamper reflected neutrons back into the core, preventing it from reaching supercritical levels. Safety regulations required a spacer to be placed between the tamper and the plutonium core. If the tamper touched the core, it would reach supercriticality, potentially causing an explosion. However, in an attempt to speed up the experiment, Slotin disregarded protocol. Instead of using a proper spacer, he used a screwdriver to separate the tamper and the plutonium core. It was the reckless act of a scientist playing with fire. While demonstrating his screwdriver technique, Slotin's hand slipped and the screwdriver fell. The tamper snapped shut, and the Demon Core reached supercriticality. A powerful burst of gamma radiation flooded the room, striking Slotin and the 7 other scientists. In that split-second interaction, an estimated 3 quadrillion fission reactions occurred. Slotin's body shielded his colleagues from the worst of the neutron radiation, but he himself absorbed a lethal dose. 1,000 radians of neutron radiation and 114 radians of gamma radiation in less than 1 second. This exposure was equivalent to standing just 1,500 meters from a nuclear bomb detonation, about 20 sieverts. Slotin was rushed to the hospital, but his condition was irreversible. After enduring 9 days of excruciating pain, he succumbed to radiation poisoning. Scientists later referred to his reckless handling of the Demon Core as tickling the dragon's tail, a deadly game that cost him his life. Cecil Kelley, still within the Los Alamos Plutonium Reactor Laboratory, but this time involving a different scientist. On December 30th, 1958, Cecil Kelley, a highly experienced chemical operator, encountered a devastating accident while working near a large mixing tank containing a plutonium solution. At the time, the mixture in the tank was supposed to be diluted, with less than 0.1 grams of plutonium per liter. However, at that moment, the concentration was accidentally 200 times higher than the permitted level. When Kelley switched on the mixer, the solution formed large vortex currents, causing the plutonium to accumulate in dense clusters, leading to a violent fission reaction. Within 200 millionths of a second, a powerful burst of energy and an enormous gamma-ray wave was released. Kelley, who was standing near the staircase window, was hit directly. He collapsed instantly onto the floor of the facility. 2 nearby workers only saw a bright flash, followed by the thud of Kelley's body hitting the ground. They rushed to his side, where they heard him weakly whisper, I'm burning! I'm on fire!" Kelley was immediately rushed to the hospital in a semi-conscious state, gasping for breath. Radiation detection equipment confirmed that every bodily fluid he excreted was highly radioactive. 2 hours after the accident, his condition briefly stabilized, and he regained some awareness. However, it was clear that he would not survive much longer. Medical tests revealed severe destruction of his bones and bone marrow, causing excruciating pain in his abdomen. Finally, Cecil Kelley succumbed to his injuries 35 hours after the accident. The Chernobyl nuclear disaster occurred on April 26, 1986, when the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union, exploded. It remains the most catastrophic nuclear accident in human history. A massive radioactive cloud was released from the plant, spreading across various regions of the Soviet Union, Eastern and Western Europe, Scandinavia, the United Kingdom, and even reaching the eastern United States. Vast areas of Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia suffered severe contamination, leading to the evacuation and resettlement of over 336,000 people. Around 60% of the radiation fallout landed in Belarus. According to a 2006 report, nearly half of the total radioactive emissions extended beyond the borders of the 3 former Soviet republics. This disaster released 400 times more radiation than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Despite the catastrophic circumstances, there were heroes who risked everything to confront the crisis. Among them was Alexander Lelechenko, a 47-year-old deputy head of the power workshop at Chernobyl. After the explosion, Lelechenko entered the power control room 3 times, personally shutting down the hydrogen supply system to the turbine halls. Had he failed, the hydrogen could have ignited, triggering an explosion as devastating as a hydrogen bomb. Even after receiving medical treatment in the following days, Lelechenko refused to rest. He pleaded with doctors to let him go outside for fresh air, but instead sneaked back to the plant, determined to assist his colleagues in mitigating the disaster's aftermath and ensuring the remaining 3 reactors remained stable. Once again, he threw himself into his duties, fully aware that his deteriorating health would not allow him to survive much longer. On May 7, 1986, Alexander Lelechenko succumbed to acute radiation sickness, having sacrificed himself to prevent an even greater catastrophe. He was posthumously awarded the title of Hero of Ukraine, forever remembered for his unwavering bravery and selfless dedication. His story stands as one of the clearest testaments to human courage and responsibility, a reminder of those who willingly stepped into the fire of nuclear disaster to protect countless others.